Hi, good evening everyone. We will be just going through a little journey for about 20 minutes to find out how Mendel's factors got transformed itself into the today's DNA. That is the idea given in the chapter Molecular Basis of Inheritance in NCERT's textbook of the class 12. We will be examining that today. Now, since the beginning of the scientific studies, people have been trying to find out how genetic material passed on from one parent to other parent, or one generation to another generation, in what form it has gone through. So people in the earlier days felt there was something in the nucleus, they called it nucleon, perhaps was responsible. And people like Mendel, Hunt, Sutton, Morgan, all these people tried to explain in their own way about the inheritance that happens in the living beings. At least they were able to say, especially this group of people, that is Mendel, Hunt, Sutton, Morgan, they were able to say that chromosomes in the nucleus are responsible, because by that time Leeuwenhoek already invented the microscope, and they could able to see the thread-like structures that will appear during the mitosis was seen. So they came to that thing. But what is that inside that chromosome that makes the inheritance to go was not known. Mendel just called it a factor. But it is by 1928 or 1926, people were speculating whether it is protein, whether it is RNA or DNA, or what type of particles, what is that is present inside the nucleus, and that is responsible for the inheritance and passing on information from one generation to other generation. Now, though the people right from Mendel time, people were working, they were not aware which molecule is responsible until 1926. They know by the time there are many molecules inside the living cell, which particular molecule, whether it is protein or RNA or DNA, what is that is really responsible was not known. So by this time, more than 10 to 20 workers in different areas, biochemistry, medical research, genetics, all these people came out with different ideas, but their two important experiments by group of people, for which the credit goes to some people, but two groups of people worked on that. One important work is by means of Griffith's work. That is one important work that you have to remember for your studies. And then second one was again the McCarthy et al. They also did the same type of work like Griffith, and that was further once again that was repeated by Hershey and Chase in 1952. See, by studying all this, what is that we have to understand? We should know that one discovery leads to some other invention. One invention takes to other invention. So if you study the entire chapter, you should focus not just on the content, mugging and writing the examination, but you should know that how an ordinary research even an ordinary research can take a big lead in breakthrough of many things, because Griffith did the same experiment using certain bacterial cells and also the viruses. MacArthur did the same thing, Hershey did the same thing, but their model of work, the model of study, the plan of research was very different. Similarly, Wilkinson and other people worked on the crystallography, but the breakthrough came for Watson and Crick. So while studying the chapter, please try to know these things. Ask simple, small questions here and there to know what is that you are studying. Of course, you need to get marks to go for your medical examination or whatever it is, but a lot of opening is there today in the molecular biology, biochemistry, chemical engineering, whatnot. You think of today's COVID. If you can break the COVID's RNA and stop reproduction, then you may get a Nobel Prize. Who knows? So it is the research that makes important. For your examination, you may have to write, but studying these things, you must be able to question many things and find out what it is. So with that kind of a little introduction, we will study the important work of Griffith on Streptococcus pneumoniae, that is a bacteria. He worked on that with the mice. We shall try to know what it is. So by studying these things, you should be able to think, ask questions, what you are reading, and then why you are learning those things. That is very important in this chapter. See, what Griffiths did was, he took Streptococcus pneumoniae, a bacterial cell that is a pathogen, meaning that will produce the disease in the host. Even maybe man, maybe in the rats, that will cause what's called pneumonia. And they found out when they grow the bacteria on the things called the Petri plates. That's the Petri plate. That's a thing they will work on that. There will be something called agar-agar. When they grow, they found out some of the bacterial colonia, as they are called, were smooth and others were rough. They had the rough type. So he found out two types. One is called smooth or S type. Second is called R type. So based upon the topography or the appearance, smooth one is one where there will be some mucus on the top produced by the bacterial cell itself, and then there will be that will be rough type where there is no mucus. They are called the R type and the S type. So what they found out was this R type, S type, when it is infected to mice, they die due to pneumonia. They die. When the R type is made to infect on mice, they live. That means this S type is a pathogen. This is non-pathogenic pathogen. So this is the first thing they observed it. He observed it. So now what he did was, he did a very ingenious type of experiment. And in that experiment, what he did was, first he used the S type and he observed that the mice died. They died. In the second time, again he took R type and they tried the experiment once again on the mice. They lived. So he came to a conclusion, one of them is a pathogenic, other one is not a pathogen. Now he devised a very ingenious kind of a experiment. That is very important in the research. What he did was, he just took the S type of the pathogens and he boiled them for some time. He boiled the colonies. It's called heat killing. He killed it. See, we do not know the amount of heat he used to boil that the S type of the Staphylococcus pneumonia, but we know he boiled it. So by boiling, perhaps some materials in the bacteria was denatured and some of them did not change. That may be the reason. We do not know what it is, but he did that. And then he took this boiled and killed bacteria and he once again injected on this to the mice. This time it is, we will write here, yes, but it is boiled or killed. We can say like that, killed and type. When he did that, the mice did not die. They lived. You understand this point now? So they lived. And then what he did was, he took the boiled and killed material, that is the bacteria S type, and this strain he mixed with the R type, that is S boiled. He mixed with the R type and he injected into the mice, and the mice now died. They are dead. So now if you independently introduce, once again he did the same thing. Once again he took the R type. Once again he tried this on the mice. They lived. That means this pathogen, when it is mixed with the virulent type of bacteria that was heat killed, somehow there was some material in that, and that material influenced the R type and made the R type into a pathogenic one. And that kind, he called that particular phenomenon as transformed. So the S type transformed the R type into the pathogen. This was the experiment he did. So at this point, he came to a conclusion, and that conclusion was something present in the heat-killed S type of the bacteria had some material that was responsible for making the R type to be transformed into the pathogen type. That is, a transformation has taken place. So this genetic principle was there. That means they came to a conclusion that a chemical present in the material was responsible for transforming the genetic material. That is the principle they come to. That means a chemical present in the, or a chemical present or a molecule present in the material was responsible for transformation. This was the first thing they identified, and they felt it may be the DNA. By the time the word DNA was known, but it was not true, it was not proved that DNA was responsible, because there was a big debate going on between protein or the DNA was responsible for it. So that is one experiment you should remember. That's the Griffith's work. Now the McCarthy also did the same thing like the Griffith's work. They went little further, they did little more research, but they also came to a conclusion that there was a transformation possible due to some chemical thing, and they called it say the transformation principle was there, and genetic principle, and that is definitely a chemical. And now we come to the second and the most important experimental evidence that has given the given the support to the postulation that DNA was responsible. That is the work of Hershey and Chase. See, what they ingeniously they did was they selected a particular type of a virus, and that virus is known by the name bacteriophage, T2 bacteriophage. It looks like that. This is a phage, and this virus is a very small one. Virus itself is very small, and this will contain a central DNA because it does not contain the nucleus. Some virus may contain DNA, some virus may contain RNA, and that will have an outer protein coat or protein shell. And this is the tail, it's called tail. And these are the filaments that will fix on anything they attack. These viruses, these are the viruses. These viruses are called phage virus. The name is phage, bacteriophage it's called. And this phage will normally attack a bacterial cell, and that bacterial cell is known as E. coli. E. coli means Escherichia coli, that is the bacteria. It will attack. That means it can attack, this means it can infect that, it can destroy the cell, and it will produce its own copies. That's what it will do. Now what these two gentlemen, Hershey and Chase, did was a very ingenious activity, research, and that has given them not only credit, but the world came to a conclusion about the genetic material. What they did was they used the sulfur and phosphorus to they labeled it. They labeled it by means of radioisotopes. This was also labeled. So they selected two. You may select many, but that is the ingenuity of the researchers. They selected sulfur and phosphorus to do their research on these two organisms. So what they did was they when these virus and small things are grown in the lab, they are grown in the lab in a small plate, a circular plate called a Petri plate or a Petri dish. In that one, there will have a nutrient material called agar-agar. It will be present here. That's called agar-agar, and on that the growth will be there. So they took two different. I will write that in the same color. Another Petri plate, and there was also the same nutrient was there, and they had the DNA phage, and that is the color I used here. So DNA phage was growing here. So to this DNA phage, let's call A and B. So to one of them, as this P, that is phosphate or phosphorus labeled, they fed this to this particular group of A. They took sulfur, and that is just this sulfur. Sulfur was added to this another one called B. So they started growing two different Petri plates, two different types of nutrients were given for that. It was labeled. They used the isotopes. The sulfur isotope and phosphorus isotope was used, and then once the colony was growing, what they did was they took the these phages and they infected. The first thing is they infected to coli. So they brought it and they infected this one. So what they did was they took another type like that, the same way. So in the other one, they took again the bacteriophage. Bacteriophage was taken like that, and then they had the same DNA was there. DNA will be in the double helix here also, double helix here also, double helix was there, and then they took the E. coli, that's E. coli bacteria. So one of them, for example, if we call this A, we call this A, experiment A, it is B. So for the A, they had the phage in which the phosphorus was labeled. For the other one, they used for the other one, the B, they used sulfur labeled. Sulfur was labeled here, phosphorus was labeled here. They used two different things. When once they bring such a virus and make them to attack, and that is the first stage called the infection stage. They infected that. They artificially, in the laboratory, they infected. They brought and put it onto these two different colonies, and they allowed it to grow for some time. And when once they saw there was something is happening, what happened was this particular when once they attack like this, what they do, they inject or they push the DNA into the cell, and that is transduction. They push it inside and they allow that to grow. So you know that the bacterial cell has its own DNA, and that DNA will be circular DNA. That is also DNA. That's also DNA. So when this DNA from the thing will come, it will come here, and that may do its own activity now. What it does is it will attack that. So what they did was, once this has happened, they did the second type of the activity here. They use a blender. I mean, what we call mixie in our country, the blender, and they centrifuged it to 10,000 RPM, 10,000 RPM rotations per minute. They did it. Then once they do it, what happened was they made these two to join. They blend. These two started blending. They started blending together, and then as the blending goes on, slowly the shell, outer shell, detaches from the main thing. So this gets detached. So blending makes the RPM in such a way that after some time this gets detached. They go away. The shell goes away, leaving the infected material, infected E. coli. And then the third stage, what they did was, in the third one, the final one, then they centrifuged. They took the colony that was growing, that is from A, they centrifuged it, and B centrifuged it. When they do a centrifuging, centrifuge means they will be rotating at a high speed. When the centrifuge they have done it, what they discovered, what they found was here in the centrifuge. And so if this is the centrifuge, I mean, if you take the material in a test tube from centrifuge was taken. They found at the base of there was larger particles at the bottom of the test tube and very small thin particle in the liquid. That's a liquid. It's a liquid here. This was the type of a thing they got from this one. And first they did for A and then they did for B later on. So they did. And then what they did was they took this material and they further analyzed. They are called fractions. They took, let's say, fraction 1 at the bottom, fraction at the bottom, and this is the supernatant liquid. So that is the upper one. Supernatant, upper one was there. So they took this and they analyzed. When they analyzed this one, they found the bacterial DNA was completely infected with the labeled DNA. There was the labeled, everything was labeled here. And when they took this particular set B, in the B, when once they tried this B for centrifuging, they observed it. When they analyzed it, they found that these fragments did not show labeled phosphorus, but they only showed the upper liquid that showed sulfur. Sulfur was visible there, but there was no phosphate. Why this is so? So they came to a conclusion that the DNA which was treated with the phosphate got blended with the DNA of the coli, and they started reproducing many colonies, many viruses in that one, and that's how it happened. Whereas sulfur did not enter into the DNA at all. It has no entry for the sulfur into DNA. So they know by the time that DNA has phosphate, it has no sulfur. Protein has sulfur and protein does not have the phosphate. So this was known. So by this experiment, they clearly came to a conclusion that the experiment of this particular people, Hershey and Chase, given the world a wonderful observation, and they concluded that DNA, not protein, is the molecule that takes part in transferring the genetic material from one generation to other generation. DNA molecule is take part in heredity, or you can say, or DNA will be the genetic material. This was proved beyond doubt by these two people. So, like this, we now know from the Mendel's time to today, we know by various experiments have clearly proved that DNA is the material that is responsible for transferring and storing the genetic material and transferring the material to other system. In the examination, they may ask you a question regarding the work of Griffith and also the work of Hershey and Chase. Please try to remember. And these two experiments concludes the point that the genetic material is DNA, not the protein. Thank you.